executed 13 arrests of high-level fentanyl traffickers, 13 search warrants in the Seattle-Tacoma area, and even beyond Washington state, in Arizona, Nevada, and Puerto Rico. This investigation revealed that through a courier network, drugs are being trafficked into Washington state from a source of supply in Phoenix with Mexican cartel ties.
16 arrests, 36 hours, 13 search warrants executed across Tacoma and Lakewood. The FBI's South Sound Safe Streets Gang Task Force just dismantled a fentanyl pipeline running straight through SeaTac Airport, and the wiretaps caught everything.
Female couriers would fly down to Phoenix and then bring the drugs back to Washington state for redistribution in checked luggage. The supplier in Phoenix was also sending other couriers around the United States, and investigations into that activity are ongoing.
Female couriers checked luggage stuffed with blue pills, one-way tickets to Phoenix, and return flights loaded with kilos. The target: the Knockout Crips, a Tacoma street gang that turned commercial air travel into a cartel logistics operation.
The FBI says 15 people have now been arrested, including members of a violent Tacoma street gang, as part of a massive fentanyl trafficking bust in Pierce County. They were part of a drug ring run that included some people associated with the Knockout Crips, and the FBI says this wasn't just male gang members involved. As Fox 13's Jennifer Dowling reports, they were getting past airport security with the help of some high heels.
But here's what federal investigators are now piecing together. The Phoenix connection isn't just a supplier, it's a staging ground dominated by CJNG, and the same cartel already has labs operating less than 90 minutes from Seattle. So how did a street gang turn America's airports into drug mules? And how deep do the cartel ties actually go? The operation was elegant in its simplicity, and that's what made it so dangerous. For 18 months, the FBI ran wiretaps on the Knockout Crips. What they heard was a logistics operation that would make FedEx jealous.
For nearly 2 years, agents tracked the gang's every move, from stash houses in Tacoma to luggage carousels at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, and what they uncovered was staggering. Officials say the group had engineered a professional smuggling system that moved fentanyl pills from Phoenix, Arizona, into Washington state using commercial flights and everyday travelers.
The gang recruited female couriers, women who wouldn't raise suspicion at TSA checkpoints. These women flew from SeaTac to Phoenix on trips lasting 1 to 3 days, short enough to look like personal travel, long enough to pick up product. The drugs came back in checked luggage, kilogram quantities of fentanyl pills and powder, tucked into suitcases that rolled right through baggage claim.
Many of those couriers were women, recruited through social media or personal connections, and promised easy money for quick trips. They were instructed to fill luggage with shrink-wrapped packages of fentanyl powder and pressed pills, soak the bags in perfume to mask the odor, and board flights bound for SeaTac. Once the drugs arrived, local distributors working for the Knockout Crips collected the shipments, broke them down, and pushed the product into Pierce County's neighborhoods.
Wiretaps captured the conversations in real time, and suspects discussed the blue pills, which is also the street slang for fentanyl-laced tablets. They coordinated airport pickups, and they scheduled deliveries to Tacoma safe houses.
When the final warrants were executed, the results told the story in numbers. 2.6 kilograms of fentanyl, 6.8 kilograms of methamphetamine, 228 grams of cocaine, 27 kilograms of marijuana, and 23 firearms, several of them stolen, were seized. More than $111,000 in cash was recovered from stash houses, vehicles, and hidden compartments inside walls. Agents also collected ledgers, burner phones, and encrypted messages that mapped out every stage of the operation.
One name kept surfacing: Jalen Irish. Investigators documented her on multiple flights, shuttling between Seattle and Phoenix like a commuter. Each return trip meant another kilo entering Washington state. The destination was always the same. Bryant K. Moss Jr., known as BJ, ran distribution out of Tacoma. The Irish and others carried fed directly into his network. Federal agents didn't just listen. They intercepted shipments directly at SeaTac, pulling suitcases off carousels and finding exactly what the wiretaps promised.
The FBI recorded every word. For 8 weeks, analysts built a digital map of the network, tracing supply lines from cartel brokers in Arizona to neighborhood dealers in Washington. When agents confirmed the timing of multiple shipments through SeaTac Airport, the green light was given for full-scale interdiction.
And this wasn't an isolated vulnerability. Just months earlier, in March 2025, CBP officers at the same airport seized 18 pounds of methamphetamine from a passenger's carry-on. The airport was bleeding, but the knockout Crips had something the meth courier didn't. A direct line to Phoenix. Phoenix isn't just another city in this network. It's the fentanyl capital of the American Southwest, and Martin was plugged directly into it.
A Phoenix man accused of running a nationwide drug trafficking ring has pleaded guilty. Officials say Marcos Maneras Mendoza and his son were leaders of the Maneras drug ring that was based in Phoenix. The group imported millions of fentanyl pills, fentanyl powder, meth, cocaine from Mexico, and then sold them across the U.S. A wiretap investigation by the FBI led to the discovery of the criminal enterprise, and in 2023, Maneras and his sons and 35 others were arrested.
Here's what investigators are now tracking. DEA labs in Phoenix are processing record seizures, over 700,000 pills, in recent operations alone. Phoenix police crime labs handle 30 to 60 cases every single day. The city has become a choke point for cartel product moving north. But something else is showing up in those lab tests. BTMPS, an industrial chemical with zero legitimate human use, is now appearing in Phoenix-tested fentanyl samples. Analysts from Los Angeles to Philadelphia are flagging the same compound. It's either a manufacturing reagent or an adulterant. Either way, it's a chemical fingerprint pointing straight back to cartel production.
Maneras will be sentenced in December. He faces 20 years to life in prison and a fine of over $2 million.
Matt Giordano has been named the new chief of the Phoenix Police Department. Giordano currently serves as executive director of the Arizona Peace Officer Standards and Training Board. He's a former Phoenix police officer. He says among his top priorities is recruiting and keeping police officers on the job longer.
The infrastructure is already in place. In 2024, a father-son duo running the Maneras trafficking organization was charged with moving fentanyl and meth from Mexican suppliers through Phoenix, the same northward pipeline, the same staging ground. Martin's role, according to prosecutors, was feeding that pipeline to Seattle. Couriers flew in, picked up product from his network, and carried it back to Tacoma. The wiretaps proved the connection. The question investigators are now asking, who was supplying Martin? No indictment in this case names CJNG directly, but federal investigators aren't naive about who controls Phoenix's trade. The Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación and the Sinaloa Cartel dominate Arizona's fentanyl ecosystem. They produce pills in Mexico using Chinese precursor chemicals. They stage product in Phoenix. They push it north through networks exactly like the one the Knockout Crips were running. And CJNG isn't new to Western Washington.
Good afternoon. The FBI says that the Knockout Crips street gang has been in the area since the early 2000s and is responsible for a number of violent crimes, including drive-by shootings and assaults. The FBI says in just the past 36 hours, law enforcement has issued and enacted 13 search warrants and arrested 8 of 9 people who are charged with conspiracy to distribute fentanyl in just that short period of time.
Just 90 minutes from Seattle, in Port Orchard, federal agents previously dismantled a CJNG methamphetamine conversion lab. The operation was sophisticated. Cartel members shipped liquid meth infused in candles from Mexico, then converted it to solid form for street sale. That same cell distributed heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl-laced pills across the region. The seizure, 120 pounds of meth, 15 firearms, and 1,700 fake fentanyl pills, each one potentially lethal. The cell's leaders, Juan Antonio Gonzalez Carrillo and Alan Gomez Marentes, coordinated directly with cartel leadership in Mexico. Wiretaps from that investigation captured the chain of command. The violence followed the kidnappings, murders, CJNG enforcing territory in American suburbs.
This has done a lot to cut off that supply of drugs into the area, and has also taken a lot of violent individuals off the street, because the drug trade was a very important part of this case, and these drugs can certainly kill, but the violence associated with the trade and with this group in particular is really what was significant.
The FBI says some fentanyl was found at CJNG Airport and the Baltimore Airport, and even before yesterday's takedown in which additional drugs were seized, investigators say they received almost 80 pounds of fentanyl spread out between CJNG and the Baltimore Airport over the span of a few weeks.
But here's the strategic shift investigators noticed. CJNG deliberately avoids high-profile violence on U.S. soil. They learned from the mistakes of earlier cartels. Keep the bodies in Mexico. Keep American operations quiet. Use local gangs for street-level distribution. A street gang like the Knockout Crips fits that model perfectly. They handle the last mile. They take the risks. They catch the charges.
What started as a local overdose review quickly expanded into one of Washington's largest gang trafficking investigations. Over months of surveillance, wiretaps, and undercover operations, agents uncovered communications between Tacoma-based gang leaders and Phoenix area suppliers coordinating shipments. Some routes extended eastward to Baltimore, revealing the network's reach far beyond the Pacific Northwest.
In 2023, a mid-level CJNG-connected leader in Renton, just miles from Seattle, was sentenced after an 18-month wiretap investigation. That probe indicted 19 people for smuggling fentanyl, meth, cocaine, and heroin from Mexico to the Puget Sound area.
Of those 13 cases, under Sheriff Judd's leadership and the investigative team in the back there, 42 arrests have been made. 48.5 kilos, or as the sheriff has talked about today, over 100 pounds of fentanyl has been seized, in addition to 12.5 kilos of cocaine.
CJNG's fingerprints are all over this region. The only question is how many layers separate them from the Knockout Crips. And in 2025, the U.S. Treasury answered part of that question. New sanctions targeted CJNG figures specifically for fentanyl trafficking into the United States. The cartel's American distribution network isn't theoretical, it's documented. The FBI moved on August 2025, 13 search warrants, 36 hours of coordinated raids. The South Sound Safe Streets Gang Task Force hit locations across Tacoma, Lakewood, and surrounding areas simultaneously.
When the final warrants were executed, the results told the story in numbers. 2.6 kilograms of fentanyl, 6.8 kilograms of methamphetamine, 228 grams of cocaine, 27 kilograms of marijuana, and 23 firearms, several of them stolen, were seized. More than $111,000 in cash was recovered from stash houses, vehicles, and hidden compartments inside walls. Agents also collected ledgers, burner phones, and encrypted messages that mapped out every stage of the operation.
The investigation had already produced results before the final raids. Over 18 months, authorities seized approximately 34 kilograms of fentanyl, enough for millions of lethal doses. Add 45 kilograms of marijuana and 9 firearms recovered during the probe, but the final takedown added to the haul. In those 36 hours, agents recovered an additional 2.6 kilograms of fentanyl, 6.8 kilograms of methamphetamine, 27 kilograms of marijuana, 23 more firearms, and over $111,000 in cash. The weapons weren't decorative. Prosecutors tied the gang to armed enforcement of drug debts, shootings, and territorial violence. This wasn't just distribution, it was an armed criminal enterprise.
It is part of a wider battle being fought neighborhood by neighborhood, airport by airport. And this week, the traffickers who believed they could hide inside airport crowds learned that federal eyes were on them every step of the way. The case that ended in Tacoma's dawn raids began quietly months earlier, inside a federal wire room.
The conspiracy charges carry serious time, and with wiretap evidence documenting the entire operation, plea deals are likely coming fast. The Knockout Crips bust didn't happen in isolation. Seattle is under siege. Just months later, in November 2025, the DEA announced 18 more arrests across 2 separate drug rings in the Seattle region. One network was tied to Ecuadorian nationals, the other traced back to Mexican suppliers.
The 269 pounds of fentanyl pills and powders seized in this case could have yielded a staggering 6.9 million lethal doses.
Today, the Drug Enforcement Administration announced a massive drug bust connected to a major Mexican cartel. 19 people have been charged, including Washingtonians and foreign nationals.
Fox 13 News reporter Nia Wong breaks down how federal agents tracked this case from Tacoma to Sinaloa, Mexico. You're looking at a fraction of the hundreds of pounds of meth and fentanyl seized by the Drug Enforcement Administration and partnering agencies.
This could have killed every person in every community in the Puget Sound region.
The combined seizure, 3.4 million lethal doses of fentanyl. That breaks down to 105,000 pills and 34 kilograms of powder, plus dozens of firearms and $360,000 in cash. Neither operation involves SeaTac directly, but they prove the same point. Seattle has become a destination market for cartel fentanyl. Rewind to October 2024. The DEA and FBI took down an East African drug trafficking organization operating near the University of Washington. That investigation actually started at SeaTac Airport. Agents monitoring suspicious arrivals. The bust yielded 50 firearms, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and hundreds of thousands in cash and jewelry. The ring operated out of 2 Seattle properties nicknamed The House and The Office. June 2025 brought another wave. 14 people indicted in interrelated Seattle fentanyl and heroin rings. SeaTac isn't just a transit point, it's a documented entry corridor for cartel product. Here's what should terrify anyone who flies. The Knockout Crips ran their operation for 18 months before the FBI shut it down. 18 months of couriers boarding commercial flights with nothing but a ticket and a suitcase. 18 months of kilos moving through TSA checkpoints and baggage systems designed to catch exactly this. The method was simple. Checked luggage. The same bags that hold vacation clothes and business suits also held fentanyl shipments. Drug-sniffing dogs exist. Enhanced screening exists. It wasn't enough. CBP has deployed advanced technology at airports, non-intrusive inspection scanners, AI-powered targeting systems, predictive analytics. Operation Plaza Spike surged resources to interdict TCO shipments through airports in 2024 and 2025. Operation Hourglass fused CBP with federal and international partners across multiple states. And still, the couriers flew. The Government Accountability Office has already flagged the gap. In 2025 recommendations, GAO pushed DHS to establish better data collection and performance measures. The translation: we don't fully know what's getting through. Baltimore Washington International caught pills in baggage on August 28, 2025. Philadelphia intercepted ketamine on July 17th. El Paso ports seized over 263 kilograms of narcotics on November 6th. These are victories, but they're also admissions. Every seizure means something was being attempted, and for every suitcase that gets pulled, how many roll through? The Knockout Crips answered that question. Enough to run a multi-kilo operation for a year and a half. SeaTac Airport is now a documented corridor. Federal wiretaps proved a direct Phoenix to Seattle pipeline. And CJNG's regional infrastructure, from Port Orchard Labs to Renton distribution cells, suggests the Knockout Crips bust barely scratched the surface. The convictions will come. The wiretap evidence is devastating. But the network doesn't end with 16 arrests. Dallas Martin coordinated supply from Phoenix. Someone supplied him. The couriers carried kilos through checked luggage. Someone recruited them. The drugs reached Tacoma safe houses. Someone distributed beyond Pierce County. Federal investigators are still pulling threads. More indictments are expected. And CJNG's strategy, using local gangs for last-mile distribution while keeping cartel leadership insulated, means the real architects may never see American courtrooms. The question that should keep every traveler awake: how many similar courier operations are still flying? How many suitcases rolled through baggage claim today carrying enough fentanyl to kill a city? The FBI caught one cell. The pipeline didn't close. 16 arrests, 34 kilograms of fentanyl, an 18-month wiretap that caught every conversation. Federal teams didn't just raid a drug ring, they exposed how cartels turned commercial aviation into a logistics network. Female couriers on round-trip tickets, checked luggage as drug mules, a Phoenix supplier feeding product to a Tacoma street gang. And in the background, CJNG's shadow infrastructure, already operating labs less than 2 hours from Seattle. The Knockout Crips are done, but the vulnerability they exploited is still there. Every airport, every baggage carousel, every suitcase that doesn't get searched. Subscribe if you want the stories the mainstream won't touch. And tell me in the comments, should TSA be screening domestic checked bags for or is that already too late?